All right. Hi, everyone. Sorry for starting late.
No worries. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Dallas?
I'm great.
Today we're going to talk about listing process overview. Next week, we'll talk about buyer process overview. The reason that I set up the classes in this sequence is because I think it's really important that we understand sort of what happens in a transaction and the linear path it happens, well, semi-linear path it happens in, so that we understand how the really in-depth lessons that follow fit into that process. And I'm going to pull up an outline of the listing process overview. And I'd like for you to please write it down. And the reason I'd like for you to write it down is because when you write things down, they stick with you a little bit better. It's an old school trick, you know, it does work. Let's see here. Let me pull it up and I will cast the screen. Where is this? All right. Share screen. All right, so we're not going to talk about what goes into getting a listing because we'll cover that in listing contract class and listing presentation class, as well as CMA class. All right. So we're assuming you have your signed listing agreement. Okay. So you start to work with the seller, right? And it's very important that you properly, your flashlight's on, Cheryl.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's very important that you help your seller, if they're willing, to properly prepare for market. Okay. And so that would include helping your seller, if necessary, to get pre-inspections if you see very big problems, looking into staging if the home needs to show a little bit better, or perhaps the seller is a little unreasonable on price. And so you need to do something to, you know, emotionally pull a buyer in, possibly paying more. Staging does generally translate to a higher sales price. Okay. Getting quotes for any repairs that might need to be done before listing the property. And sometimes these things are interrelated, right? They affect one another. If we have pre-inspections because we think there's a big problem or something that should be fixed, then we would get quotes for repairs that might need to be done before listing the property. Then we would do staging. You would open a title order, okay? You would open a title order. The reason for this is because if you list a property and you go to market and you don't know what's on title, there could be a deal wrecking item on the title report. So you need to know what's going on before you get into it. There are also a lot of times errors on title. Very commonly, a seller may have refied, okay? But their old lender, when they got paid off by the new lender, when they did their refinance, forgot to record what's called a reconveyance, taking that old loan off of title. Perhaps someone passed away. Perhaps children inherited a home, but they never changed title, okay? So what would happen in these instances is you should get it fixed so you have a clean transaction and less stress. Take care of problems preemptively. You'd work with the title company and you'd say, okay, so-and-so inherited the property from their parents. They haven't transferred the title. What documents do you need from me? What's the process? Like, what does that take? And who would you reach out to for a title issue for help with that? Title rep. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's something like an easement on the property. I'm sure, especially newly licensed agents, you remember what an easement is, right? Yeah. Basically, it's the use by anyone other than the property owner. Uh-huh. What's a prescriptive easement, guys? That's one that's not recorded on title, but they've been using it for over 5 years. So technically it's a legal issue. If it went to court, whoever's been using it 5 or more years, they have right to use. Yeah. So when you see easements on property, depending upon what it is, it can be a big issue. Even when it's in favor of the subject property. I'll give you an example. I had buyers who wanted to write an offer on a property in Beverly Hills on Tower Grove, BHPO. Great property. They ended up buying something that costs way more. Yay.
This is a Tower Road, you said?
Tower Grove.
Oh, Tower Road.
Because there was an easement in favor of the property that they were considering buying onto the neighboring property, which was a bunch of land, but it was owned by, what's it called? You guys know the name of it? It's got the vineyards and all that. There was a bunch of litigation. The guy who owned Herbalife owned all of that. You know what I'm talking about? Is it called the hill, the mountain? The mountain. It's called the mountain. And so my clients were really concerned that even though there was a recorded easement, the property owners next door, who were very, very wealthy, right, could just drag them through court for a long time, even though they would be in the right. And so they chose not to move forward with the purchase of this property. So you need to know things like this ahead of time, because we didn't find this out until later, right? But a good listing agent is going to make sure any interested parties are aware of this kind of stuff up front, provide copies of the documents, okay, and all of that, so they can do the research. Why? It's very important to your seller not to fall out of escrow. Big things should be disclosed ahead of time. All right, if it's a condominium, okay, and there's only 2 types of properties, 3 technically. There's multifamily, right? Single family and condo. Townhomes are a style of condo. Planned unit developments, those big gated communities where they're freestanding houses, those are generally still condos. Okay. You do need to check title on that because it can be an SFR sometimes, a single family residence, but not always. Typically not, actually. So if it's a condominium, beyond the actual condo, the health of the building and the health of the HOA's financials is really important to the success of a transaction. Why do you think that might be?
Everybody goes into upkeep and pay to keep the property up. So
Yeah,
if it's for health or if there's issues with the homeowners association, you might not know.
there's several issues for it. Yeah, and you're right on. If they don't have enough money to cover deferred maintenance, it can end up in what's called a special assessment, where the HOA just votes and they tack on a small to extremely large dollar amount that each unit then has to pay. And sometimes they have to do it in a very short time. Like I had a friend who had a little bitty condo out in Long Beach and he had to pay $15K in 6 months. That's a lot of money, right? If you don't have a lot of savings just sitting around, if you're only like kind of cutting it after you buy your place, you're going to be in some trouble.
So it's the reserve that they have.
Reserve, operating, there's a lot of things. But we'll talk about the reserve now also. The other thing is if the HOA is collecting dues and they're not taking a certain amount of those dues and depositing it into the reserve account, a lot of banks will not give the traditional primary mortgage. You'll have to get a different type of mortgage. It's a little higher risk, which results in a little higher rate. Okay, so this is why you want to know these things as the listing agent. This might make it so that the property value might need to be adjusted downward. You need to disclose issues like this up front. You need to, or try to resolve the issue so it's not an issue later. Okay, so this is why we do these things. Ask about dues increases or special assessments that are ongoing or upcoming and any pending or ongoing litigation. Okay, dues or special assessments, why? Well, you need to disclose that to the buyer and you should do it up front. If there's a special assessment, it's pretty standard for the seller to pay for it through the close of escrow. So you'll want to negotiate that with your seller client up front. And if there's any pending or ongoing litigation, anyone suing the HOA, that might make a lending issue as well. So you'd want to get copies of whatever's going on regarding that litigation, and you'd want to talk to a mortgage broker that you trust, and you'd want to say, hey, is this going to cause issues for a buyer obtaining a loan on this property? Pet restrictions. All right, so I think that there's a law has changed, so you want to check this stuff out, but a lot of HOAs don't follow all the laws and rules that are newly updated. Like rental restrictions are not really allowed anymore in condos besides short-term rental restrictions. And same thing, I think like number of pets can be limited, but I'm pretty sure there have been some legal changes to pet restrictions, but a lot of HOAs have them. You can have one pet, or you can have two pets, or they can be under 25 pounds, or this or that. Why is this important? You don't want a buyer who cannot move into the home with their pet, into the unit with their pets, and to have your seller fall out of escrow. There's a lot of stigma with a canceled escrow. So you really need to present this information up front, because it's the last situation you want to get your seller into. So you need to know these things. Another common thing is, can we install a washer dryer in the condo? Some buildings allow it, some buildings do not. So if you don't see a washer and dryer there, you need to find out that information, because that can be a deal breaker for a lot of homeowners. Hardwood floor installation. It oftentimes makes it very noisy for the parties down below that unit, if there's anyone down below. Even if it's a first floor unit, a lot of HOAs have restrictions against it in the entire building, because it's really not fair to the rest of the building that the first floor can have hardwood floors. Sometimes it's allowed in living spaces like living room, dining room, but not bedroom in HOA units. You'll need to know these things, because buyers will want to know this. Most buyers want hard floors. And that all feeds into any items that should be disclosed within the listing. Okay. Scheduling retrofitting if required. So in addition to what the state requires for safety measures in all sales of homes, which are like carbon monoxide, smoke detector, water heater strapping, the city of Los Angeles and some other cities like Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, they have additional requirements for what's called retrofitting. Retrofitting is a general term for making anything to a higher safety standard, bringing it up to a higher safety standard. Okay, so the city of Los Angeles has a special thing called the certificate of compliance. Okay, the certificate of compliance is actually filled out by a licensed contractor that the city has designated as someone who is authorized to certify that the property meets the standards for current retrofitting safety. Okay, so in the city of Los Angeles, we have a couple of additional things: automatic gas shutoff safety valve, low flow fixtures and toilets, although I've never seen a retrofitter call that out, because try to make a seller replace all of their toilets, try to make a buyer accept the new dinky little toilets instead of the nice ones that are in the bathrooms, right? So I don't see them enforcing that ever. And yeah, like me, I pop the water restrictor out of every single shower head I have. I'm like, no, I'm just going to take a bath if I don't have enough water over the top of my head, right? So it's not really saving any water, guys, for me at least. And I've never had that checked. Retrofitting can take 2 weeks. Why would I have this done prior to the close of escrow? Well, it is, or even prior to going to market. Well, I don't know how much it's going to cost or what needs to be done. That I'll be told that by the retrofitting contractor that we hire to come out and take a look. They also do the work, these companies. Most of the time it's not a lot of money, but it can be thousands of dollars. It just depends on what's going on at the property. So I like to have this taken care of ahead of time. If I don't talk about the building report, somebody remind me later. I think it's just subsequent in my outline. Draft and complete seller disclosure package with the seller, preferably in person at the property, if not possible, at a minimum over the phone. All right, so I get seller disclosures done before I go to market. And again, that is because the seller might disclose information to me that might affect value, the ability to sell, you know, how I position things when I market, right? So, for example, the seller might have a fireplace. Almost all fireplaces have bad inspections. And they're like, oh yeah, we use it all the time. And I'll be like, well, have you had it checked out by anyone anytime recently? And they'll say no. And I'll say, well, then I'd like to advertise it as decorative only so that you can't get hit up for a massive amount of credits during your escrow so I can protect your purchase price. I've never had a seller tell me no to that. They want me to protect their purchase price. That's my job, right? You know, maybe there's unpermitted spaces or things like that. So there may just be questions that pop up because of the disclosures. I might need to do research. Bottom line is I'm doing my research so I can best do my job, best position the property and protect the seller. Okay. And disclosures take a long time and they're annoying. Better to do it ahead of time than when you're on a time frame, because in a residential purchase agreement contract, the buyer's agent typically writes in the time frame in which the seller needs to deliver disclosures. And I myself like to have them within 3 days of opening escrow so that my buyer and I can read them before we do our inspections, so that if anything is of concern, we can ask the inspector to look at it very closely. So, you know, if I'm the listing agent, I really want these things ahead of time so I'm not feeling super stressed when I'm opening escrow, doing all of these things. You know, I'm going to be busy because I'm going to be in inspection soon. I really don't want to leave things like disclosures to the last minute. I've already done my seller a disservice by not knowing everything I need to know about the property before we accept an offer. Now, I don't want to put them at a disservice by setting them up for failure, you know, trying to rush them to complete disclosures. Yes.
Sometimes, like the post-war buildings, you'll see like owners take a 2-bedroom and make it a 4. If someone is buying, a buyer is interested in an investment, they want to buy a building. If we see that on the report, it shows a 2-bedroom, not a 4, what happens in this?
That goes into rental law. It doesn't affect much for buyer and seller. It doesn't affect much for the owner party. But when it comes to rental stuff, you can get yourself into trouble for having unpermitted living space in a rental unit. If it's within the same rental unit, it's not as severe, but let's say you took one apartment and divided it into 2, that would be an illegal rental unit, and a seller or an owner can get themselves into a lot of trouble for that. But that'd be more in rental law, and it depends on the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that last thing you said? If you have a single unit, you cut it in 2?
Yeah, that's an illegal rental unit. Yeah.
Is
And
there-
in the city of Los Angeles, the tenant can sue the owner for 3 times the entire amount of rent they've ever paid to them. And how do you evict a tenant from a property that's not even a rental unit? They still have tenant protection, but there's no unit to evict from. Huh.
Wait, so is that also apply for a 2-unit turn into a 3-unit?
Yes.
Is there a way to get it legalized?
I don't know. Talk to Department of Building and Safety for whatever city.
Okay, wow, that's so interesting.
That's specific to California.
That's specific to Los Angeles. I'm sure there's probably laws that cover it in the state also, but I'm more familiar with what's covered in the city of Los Angeles. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you can't just go in and chop your house up into 6 fucking houses and rent it to 6 different families. That's called slumlording. What's the question at home? Sorry.
I have a quick question. Yeah. Do you do your agent visual inspection the same time as the seller disclosure, or do you wait to do that?
Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I wait until I'm at inspections. If I'm the listing agent, I don't mind doing my my agent visual inspection disclosure at inspections because I'm not super busy at inspections. If I'm the buyer's agent, however, I am super busy at inspections. But you know, if you have the time, do it. A lot of times I'll do my avid while the property is being photographed, or I'll start doing it while I'm sitting at an open house. The sooner you have it, the better.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You'll want to talk to the seller about securing valuables, okay? Because you're going to have people into the home during showings and during open houses. And I never do showings. I never allow showings that are unaccompanied. Someone from my team or myself is always present during showings. But other agents do it different ways. Maybe you have so many listings, or I don't know. Some agents put their properties on Supra, particularly vacant ones. I don't see where it's, you know, really legit to ever do it when you have a seller occupied property, because you can't protect their home or their belongings. But yes,
I wanted to know.
speak
so
up.
Okay, so I wanted to know if you have like a private listing and.
What do you mean
there's-
private listing?
I mean, a private touring.
Uh-huh.
And the seller comes in.
The
and
seller
takes
should not be
over.
present
I know, but
for
what if they're
showings or
there?
at inspections. The
Mhm.
buyer and seller should never meet. In rare instances where there's complicated stuff in the house, maybe they want to show them. If it was a pleasant escrow, I'll set it up for them to meet afterward.
What if you didn't know? They just show up. They just say, oh, I just. saw
I've
your
had that
car."
happen and I'm like, you need to leave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they just take over.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, you need to leave.
All right, cool.
So you have that discussion as well. You should not be present for open houses or showings, not during inspections. And I'll have some people who say why, and I'll say, well, someone's paying someone to professionally pick your house apart. That would be really hard for me, even as a real estate professional, if someone came into my home and did that. You should not be here. Also, you never know what you're going to say or how it could be interpreted. It's just better that buyer and seller do not meet until after close of escrow if you're adamant about meeting the person purchasing your home.
What if they guys- oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Huh? Are-
It's the same for commercial? in terms
No,
of-
commercial is completely different than residential.
There's no emotions in commercial.
That's not true. It's mostly pride emotion in commercial. Ego. Don't worry, that happens in residential as well. You can experience it all in residential. Were there other questions?
Even if they say, well, you're showing upstairs.
No.
I can go in the basement.
No.
Well, okay,
I mean, if they absolutely have to for some reason, fine, but otherwise, no.
okay, thank you.
So yeah, secure valuables, that includes things that they wouldn't think of, like extra, like spare copies of keys. Okay, we don't want someone swiping keys and coming back later and robbing the seller. Prescription drugs, even like things that aren't of significant value but are bright and shiny. You know, like I had a client who had little like kind of crystally colored knickknacks on a shelf, and I'm like, oh, there'll be kids in here, probably you should remove that so the kids don't grab them or break anything. I guess it's a good time to talk about this as well. I've had a couple of bad instances when I was doing open houses or showings, and I have not had any issues since I started doing this, but I have the seller give me permission to post that the property's under video and audio surveillance. And I post it right outside the door, so every single person coming in that fucking door knows that they're being recorded, even if they're not. Okay. And I highly recommend this for all agents. You know, we always do Find My app on the phone during showings and open houses, so people know where we're at. Okay. As a woman, I always have a check-in call when my open house ends. The times I've had bad experiences, creeps have walked in like 4 minutes prior to me closing up my open house because they know I'm going to be winding down and more likely to be alone. Right? So just be really aware of these things. Have a conversation with your seller. They're not going to say no. And if the seller does, you don't want to work with that asshole anyway. But yeah, just be mindful of this. Have a conversation. You know, this also sets the stage for later conversations. Like I was doing a lease for some of my super important clients. And I was just like, hey, this guy called me up for a showing and he was really weird. If I can't get, my boyfriend or a friend or one of my team agents to join me, is it okay with you? I mean, I want to do the showing. I always want to, but I'm kind of creeped out. I'd rather do it a different day if I can't have someone else here with me. Right. And I am totally fine with that. I'm getting off topic here, but I've been at an open house where I had a creep come in. I just walked out of the fucking house. I left it open. I left him inside there. Nobody's going to fault you for that. Do not mess with your safety. You watch those true crime shows. It's always female real estate agents that end up dead. Okay. Like, protect yourselves. And yeah, don't have any qualms about taking someone to your open house. Okay. Like, don't. If you have like multiple levels too, you might want to have another agent come and help you with the second level so you can kind of like keep an eye on it. Let's see. Inclusions and exclusions. So it's not the seller's responsibility to know what would be typically included with the purchase of a home, right? They don't know the legal definition. The legal definition of what would be assumed as included in the home unless otherwise specified in the residential purchase agreement is anything that's permanently affixed. So this means curtain rods, but it makes curtains kind of a gray area, right? This makes a television mount included, but not the TV. This makes light fixtures included. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what the legal definition is. What matters is that you have this conversation with the homeowner. That way you position this to any interested parties correctly. This would include appliances. Are they going to leave the appliances? Most of the time people do because the appliances fit the space perfectly, but not always. Sometimes it's negotiable. So just have that conversation so that, and keep in mind that whatever you put in the, and this goes into the listing agreement also, but keep in mind that whatever is in the listing agreement, whatever you and the seller agree to, the buyer's not bound to that. It has to be further agreed to in the purchase agreement. Does not matter what's on the MLS, what you told them verbally, what's in the listing agreement, what you and the seller agreed to, even if the buyer's like, yeah, it is in the purchase agreement and it must be in there. Agreeing on marketing strategy with your clients. So that means how to position issues within the property if there are any. Create a listing launch timeline or calendar. So, if we have work to be done, hi, my love, come here. Good. This is George, guys.
How do you do it? All right. You look good.
You just got back from Cancun. Hate him, right?
Yeah.
Hate you. I actually am in the middle of booking a vacation because I was looking at your photos and it made me so jelly. So, you kind of need a calendar. So the repairs are going to be done this day. The staging is going to be done this day. This is as much to keep your client on the game so that they have the property and show, like photograph condition when it's time. I actually send out calendar reminders to them. I set out calendar invites and reminders to them and to myself so I can like pick up the phone and call and check in with them. Hey, are we still ready for photos tomorrow? Blah, blah, blah time, this, that. And you want to strategically determine what day you're going to go on the market. Sometimes you can't really control it or the seller just wants it on the market as soon as possible. But if you don't have everything ready, you don't have great photos to position it, you're really doing the seller a disservice. So you need to plan this out carefully and you need to keep in mind that these timelines can change, right? This means you need to have the property description ready, the MLS listing ready, all of that stuff ready to go. You want your listing to show days on market as 0. And we'll go over this more when I go over a listing contract with you, but there's a rule saying if you have a listing contract, you need to put that listing into the MLS within, I think it's 2 or 3 business days. But I have a trick where you do an exclusion from the multiple listing service. And then when you know what day you're ready to go on the market, we use a modification to delete that exclusion and make it like a normal listing active as the day you plan to put it on. Yeah. So the days don't show as anything other than 0. So they start at 0 the way you want them to. So then you schedule your photos, any video or photo material needed. Some of your higher end listings, you're going to do things like aerial photos or drone footage, maybe videos. Like I said, you're going to write a property description for the MLS, have it approved by the client, right? Sometimes the client is very adamant that they want certain things said about their property. Sometimes they're kind of silly, but if they don't hurt the property description in any way, I want to honor the client. You know, a lot of times the client will be like, oh, well, why didn't you say it's walking distance from this? So I'll have to educate them about federal housing guidelines and discrimination language. We can't use the words walking, family, professional, anything that, you know, describes a protected class. So, and I'll talk with you more about that in.
The walkable.
Oh, people do that all the time. Yeah. If I don't like the agent, I'll flag it in the MLS. Like one of my old employers, I have one really bad former boss and her team does it on every single listing and I flag the shit out of that. I'm like, I hate you, flag.
Peace.
So you
Yeah,
can-
but thanks to her, that's why I am my own agent working for myself. She made my life so miserable. I was like, fuck it, I can take a shot. Even if I fail, anything's better than
That's how
this.
you use a hater.
Yes.
Yeah.
girl.
So you
Yeah.
can say something like near. major
Yeah, I
shopping
say
malls.
0.2 miles, 2 minutes from, you know, 2 blocks. I like to keep it distance in that, when I want to talk about how close something is. Print collateral or marketing materials, right? Remember, if you're using the marketing department, we have an office of over 700 agents. So you might need more time than you think once you have the photos and the property description, right? You pretty much need your listing ready to go before you can create an open house flyer and any other like mailings, your just listed mailing, anything that you plan on doing. So keep that in mind that if you're not doing it yourself or you're not hiring, you know, outside help for your marketing department can take a while to turn things around for you, particularly if you have multiple rounds of edits. So keep that in mind, be on top of it, stay ahead of the game, learn how to use KW Command or Canva. That will help you very well, or, you know, serve you very well. You might want to do an open house invitation. In order to do an open house invitation, you have to hire someone to deliver those open house invitations to the neighbors, right? And you need to do that before your open houses. So, you know, that needs to go out. If you're having open house Saturday, Sunday, that needs to go out probably Thursday. And it can take a very long time to hand deliver things to homes. It can also take a long time, however, to arrange to get them to a distribution service and have them send them out. So just keep those things in mind when you are timing things.
And he cannot do it.
Yeah, you can do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Enter the listing on the MLS. You can save it as incomplete, right? You can do all of the entry for the MLS, but not go live on the MLS. I highly recommend this because you want to do it ahead of time. Also, the MLS entry takes a very long time and there's a lot of terminology on there that you might not be familiar with. But here's the balancing act on it. A lot of times I can't remember specific details, so I like to do it once the photos are back from the photographer, so I don't have to look like an idiot and email or text my client and be like, hey, I can't remember if you have this in the home, right? It doesn't inspire confidence, does it? So I wait until I have those photos because you know how many houses I go through in a day? Like, I don't remember. I honestly don't. I need those photos. And I care. It's just a lot of houses. So save it in advance. The MLS entry is difficult. It can take out, I mean, it takes me hours even when I know the house very well. Okay. Organize your open houses. You're going to put your open houses on the MLS so that they disseminate online so the public is aware of your open houses. You can also purchase broker caravan magazine ads, which can be as small as what's called the showcase ad, which is like 2.5 inches by 2 inches or something in that broker caravan magazine that comes out. It's only $39. I always do that for my client because especially like the older clients, they're really, you know, they miss print marketing. So I'll take this magazine and I'll highlight the little ad I have in it and I'll leave it at their house on the countertop. after the open house. I won't even say anything. I'll just leave it there for them so they can see it a lot of times. Sometimes when I have higher end property, I'm doing like a full page spread. So, you know, you want to take copies of this to your client. I don't know that print advertising to other agents is the best use of my money or time, but it's not really about that a lot of times. A lot of times it's about making my seller feel good. Let's see. Clarify access and location of keys, even for yourself. So I have a team, so this is of the utmost importance, but I use Google Drive so that everyone can have the app on their phone and see all changes in real time. But I have showing instructions, which include things like gate codes, lockbox codes, instructions about securing animals, anything that myself or someone else would need to know to show the property. You should do this as well, because let me tell you, I don't care if you only have one listing. The second someone needs to do a showing, it'll be like during your only other super important appointment. You might need help. You might need to ask a friend in the office. How much easier would it be to send them your showing instruction than to explain it when you're like in the field doing something else, right? Trying to coordinate while you're trying to do 5 other things. So have that information set up. For open houses, you'll need open house sign directionals. This is, I'm not even doing the, I'm teaching you the wrong class. I'm teaching you the wrong class. I'm teaching you listing preparation, and you guys need listing process. I'll put up listing process for you guys to read through. Well, this is good, but yeah, it's good too. I'll give you both. So you're gonna need to print open house sign directionals. That's a big address label that goes across your open house sign, unless you have some other way to do it on your open house sign. You'll want to decide where to place the open house signs because it's very stressful placing them. Okay. You'll want signs for access to a building. If it's a condo and they need to punch a code in, or, you know, it's hard to find the unit, there aren't signs. You'll want to make it easy because you want the buyers to actually come into the unit so that they can potentially like it and make an offer. If they can't find it, that's never going to happen. All right, let me find my listing overview. Let's see. Uh-oh. Outline. Buyer process outline. No, we need seller process outline. Let's see. Who took this class last time? What was my file called? I had the same problem last class, not teaching the wrong class, but last time I taught this class, I couldn't find the outline. First time buyer, what to expect. can't even find it. So what I'm gonna do next class is I'm just going to do, it's gonna be longer, and I'm just gonna do the buyer and listing process overview, both of them. While I try to find what I need here. Listing preparation. I swear I emailed this to somebody. Bear with me a couple more minutes. If you guys want to visit, enjoy visiting. No.
New date you created it?
No. Hoping I didn't accidentally delete it, but I'm pretty sure last time I taught the class, can anyone go on YouTube and look at the date maybe of the last time I taught the listing process outline? Huh? Aha, no.
What's the name of it, Kristen? Residential listing agreement?
No, the listing process overview. All right, we're just gonna do it verbally real
Here,
quick.
I found it.
You did?
Yeah, listing process overview.
Uh-huh.
That was on January 17th, 2023.
January 17th, okay.
I also have it that you did it on March 13th.
March 13th, no.
No?
March was the new,
Wait,
you had lead generation on March.
no,
8th.
I don't do lead generation.
I'm sorry, Elevate on March 8th.
Elevates the whole program. It's okay. Now I'm just gonna do this next week. I'm gonna give you the listing process overview. Huh? It's an hour and 25. That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll be able to get it both done. But what date was it? I'm just gonna look.
January 17th. of
Okay.
this year.
I'm sorry, on my notes, I watched the video on that day from
Yeah.
your previous one. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure I follow. Let's see. Let's see, did I use the listing process? Did I use that document? Because I shared the document in that class. And let me look at that real quick, the class.
January 17th.
On January 17th, okay. Here we go.
Right?
Ah, I'm going to see myself on camera. Aha. There we are. Let's see, what does it say? Oh, this is what I taught. Okay, never mind. I taught the right class. I think that I thought like I was going to teach you the steps and what happens. Maybe I just discussed after the listing preparation. No, I know what I did because we talk about both sides in the buyer process. We talk about what happens from accepted offer on. Okay, never mind. I'm good. Yeah, come on, this is only my second rodeo with the new class outline. All right, well, I'm sorry about that, guys. So we're all good. Go enjoy. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you next Wednesday. You're welcome. You're welcome.
This is part of elevator.
Elevate is all of our classes, both Justin's and I. So I'm the director of mentorship. I'm in charge for all of this. We custom designed it. I teach you how to do your job. Justin Jacobson teaches you how to get clients. We call our program Elevate. My portion of it is called Real Estate. His is called Breakthrough Closer. Both of those courses are the Elevate program, which is part of what the mentorship program offers. Class is over. Yeah, sorry about that. All you need to know is for mentorship, you need to come to mine and Justin's classes.
Yes.
Christen,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Who do I speak to